Welcome everybody to the Salon. I'm Latoya, and on our virtual couch this evening, we have contributing artist Cheryl Prince. Hi, Cheryl.
Hello.
So Cheryl Prince is a writer, theatre maker, storyteller, performer, actress, mystic, and healer. How are you today, Cheryl?
Yeah, I'm really well. Yeah, it's been a good day. I feel like I've kind of had that balance of having some structure in my day, but also doing it the feminine way, which means taking time out to breathe, to meditate, to sit, and to take a moment in my day. So yeah, that's perfect balance for me.
Is that a typical day for you?
Yeah, I'm trying to cultivate it because I think we've had, obviously everyone's world's changed immensely, but because I've been pushed into becoming pretty much full-time writing and doing other stuff alongside, it's kind of made me think, right, well, how do I want to shape my days to make it really healthy? Because I think I really do believe we were kind of stuck in the productiveness of the old way of society, and I don't want to retrain that in of trying to fit in as much as I can do. It's actually like, how can I enjoy flow in my day as well as productivity, which is kind of what we're taught to do.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's kind of my little revolution from home.
How's that working, that shift?
It's good. It's healthy. I didn't have much choice because my body kind of stopped me. I started to feel a lot of pain. So as a healer, I was a bit like, well, hang on a minute, something's out of whack here. And I think your body is speaking to you all the time. So I started to have to do practices like yoga and stretching and jaw and standing and moving my body, and just to make my body happy. And I'm a very big believer in that you can heal yourself. You don't need to go externally. So yeah, that's actually been a good thing that I've actually had to stop and go, okay, how can I heal myself right now?
Do you think as a healer, you have been more sensitive to the effects of the pandemic, more so than someone who wasn't a healer?
um I think, honestly, I think I've had to have a look at my values and integrity about the pandemic, because ultimately I believe that as much as you can, you should try and be, holistic healing is about trying to keep yourself well so you don't have to go to medication or get fix problems that are deep set. So I think it's really made me go, actually, what can I do to really help myself? And I actually found out recently that the number one cause of COVID is stress,
Mm.
and that's medically proven. And then we're in this time where so much stress is piled onto us from externally, from the news and fear. And I actually had the virus about a year ago, and it was a time when I was really, really stressed. So I
Yeah.
think it's made me go, actually stand by all your beliefs and really keep yourself well to as a preventative measure. So yeah.
Tell me a little bit about your creative process.
Yeah.
How yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So the way I create is very much fused with kind of who I am as a healer as well. So what I mean by that is I like to channel. I like to use shamanic drums to try and receive information. My way of work as an artist has been developed through marrying myself as a soul person. So instead of trying to get knowledge outside, it's about going in and really channeling my work and finding a deeper story. And the great thing is that usually what happens is I kind of do all these practices as a healer, and then I get these kind of bigger epic stories come out of me. So that's kind of what I teach, and the kind of the workshops and things that I run about how you can access flow state and how you can access your own soul's truth. Because when that comes out of you, it's easy and it's joyous. But I think we're often taught to go and kind of learn a way of being.
Mm.
And recently I kind of realized that I mean, I'm dyslexic and I haven't really addressed it most of my life. And I think what that means is you tend to be very creative brained, but you don't like logic and structure and being forced into like a way of doing things. So having this kind of open, creative flow state that's like channeling and free really works for me. And I think it works for a lot of creatives. We just that isn't we aren't taught that's the normal way of doing things.
So when you say flow state, can you explain what you mean by that?
Yeah, so flow state is just that state where everything just comes through to you. And this happens to most artists will speak about it. They'll just say they were like, suddenly the words were there, or a song suddenly came. And so often, before you know how to access it when you're awake, it happens to you in dreams. Like one of my favorite writers, actress, Britt Marling, who wrote the brilliant OA, she got it, the storyline, all in a dream, and then she woke up and then she wrote it down. And this flow state is something like that dream state where everything's just there coming for you. We can access when we're awake. It's like the trance state that happens when you do a shamanic drum, or I can get it when I move my body into dance, or if you meditate a lot, you'll find that you go into that flow state and you can just receive the information and create your work from there. Um, yeah, and it's really, I mean, it is a practice. It's not just something that you go, that's why most people get it at first through dreams and stuff, because their brain's in the resting state so they can receive. But I believe you can do all this in a waking state. You just need to know how.
Are you always able to translate what you receive?
That's a good question. So, what I found at first when I was training, like, because I used to bring like shamanic drums into rehearsal rooms with me with actors and try and guide them through to find their characters and deeper voices and truths. And I actually find that when you're first starting out, you can receive so much information. And sometimes it's like, well, what's relevant for what I'm trying to say? So, I find the real, as I've learned, because what am I, about 3 years into my practice of the way that I work now, it's very much like I'll have a seed of an idea and then I'll channel lots of things and then I'll go back to shaping it and then channel so that it ends up being quite structured. And I like to think that I've kind of married my masculine and feminine sides, where the feminine's all flow and creative and open and circular, and the masculine's like structure and logic and um, storytelling devices. And I think if you use both of them and know how to dance with them both, that's when I can birth a piece of work. But yeah, otherwise, I went for a while where I was just totally going into flow, and I was just like, I've got a million stories here. So this is just like a beautiful creative mess. So yeah, it's learning both.
Are you always able to get into that state? Are there times where you have like a, I don't know, mental block where you can't necessarily get into flow?
Yes, yeah, definitely. And I think it's when I'm trying too hard or I'm not listening to the rhythm that I want to be in, because I think that's another thing we're kind of taught like hours to work and what works. And I don't think we're built like that, and we're not machines. So sometimes it'll be like, no, nothing's coming at all. And then I'll go, okay, I'm going to let it go. And when I let it go and go and lay in a bath and have a salt bath or something, then ideas just always come through straight away. So I think it's about relearning that relaxed state, because if
Mm.
you're trying to get something, it just won't happen. You can't try too hard for a creative state. I don't think so. It's like some days you just need to go, do you know what, I'm going to give it up and just relax, or go for a walk and just let myself get into the right state to receive something. Because I don't really believe that, I think that is the creative process. It's about how can I receive something, because it's not yours. It's something deeper than that. It's a collective energy coming in. It's I
Mm.
mean, for me it's quite spiritual, but for other people it might just be they're tapping into a part of their brain, their deep subconscious. that they're receiving.
I was gonna say, I was just wondering whether what you receive is it a mixture of your own energy and other people's energy, or is it just kind of your
Yeah.
space, your energy, your matter?
Well, I was trained, so as a healer, I was trained in angelic Reiki, and I was trained in shamanic practices. And then I've done a lot of priestess training work since. So you're not, most of how I work isn't just mine, it's working with different light frequencies, it's working with gods and goddesses, it's
Mm,
working with the angelic kingdom. So it's knowing how to tap in to a higher state of vibration. It's basically how I learn along the way is that we're all energy and we're all frequency. And if you have your low energy here, what you'll just tap into is low vibration. But if you know how to lift it, then that's when you can actually hear divine inspiration or tap
mm.
into or see it. Because we have these six senses. So some people are clairaudience, they can vision things.
Clairaudience. What's clairaudience?
The clairaudience is when you can hear. So that's how I channel. So I can just hear like the words or songs, or when I work with clients, I can just hear what's wrong with their body. So
Huh?
something will just tell me. Um, Clairvoyance is when you can see things and you're visual and you can see things around people. Clairsentient is when you can tap into the feelings. I'm also an empath. And there's all these kind of skills, these supernatural skills, our six senses that we've always had. They've just kind of died out of society, and no one kind of,
Mm,
unless I mean, if you're in spiritual communities, everyone recognizes them. But for me, I'm like, why don't we bring those senses back into our work and our way of being? And that's kind of my passion with where I want to go with theatre now, is trying to bring this kind of new dimension, these six senses, into how we work, rather than go back to kind of a what I call 3D reality, where we only understand the concrete, what's around
mm.
us and right before us. Whereas 5D is tapping into all these extra sensory senses that we absolutely all have.
Where in what where would you when would you say that we used to tap into that? Humankind used to tap into that 5D.
So I think there's always been people that have. They tend to be the way showers. So, for example, I've been halfway through writing a play about witches, and the witches that I like to talk about, that I understand, are the witches that are working in this different dimension. And I believe that's why thousands of them were killed out, because they had the power to go, no, there is this other way of being. In ancient cultures, I'm writing about ancient Egypt now, and ancient Egyptians lived their life by this spiritual dimension. Everything was working with frequencies and codes and
Mm,
extreme quantum physics. It was really
mm,
well, I mean, they knew so much more than we do. I mean, I literally, it's shocking. And also, how would the pyramids have happened if they didn't? It's like a no brainer how sophisticated they were. And so it's literally littered in our culture right throughout history. I mean, shamans, folk,
mm.
tribal people always work like this, and then they were just kind of, unfortunately, and it, I find it really out of order that we're not honouring it, is they were taken off the land and then they were ridiculed for their belief systems, which actually, look at the state of our earth now. Is it
Mm.
well? Or have we got loads of problems? And if we were listening to people that worked with the earth and the land and the extra dimensions and didn't think, oh no, no, science has got all the answers, I don't think we'd be in the state that we are.
Where do you where do you feel that disconnect came from? That planting the seed of coming away from that 5D realm that you spoke of.
I think my belief is it started with the patriarchy. I think that the whole church system took down, basically reclaimed this thing where suddenly we had this kind of God that we could only access through one person, like a priest. And instead of all the people that were doing it naturally and were in communion, and lots of pagan and druid ways and very old ways that are in our history. And I think it goes back even further, right back into ancient Egyptian times and before, when suddenly it was like, let's not look at what we can do ourselves, let's put the power into somebody else's. Because my belief is we've all these kind of divine spark, we have it within us, and we have all these gifts, but for some reason it was taken from us. And I think it's a way of mass control, because the patriarchal system that we've got now, that's not really working for anybody, not women or men, is just putting our control outside ourselves again. So it's a clever tactic, but it needs to come down, because it's not working for people. Because the more they get in tune with, oh, I can heal myself, oh, I can reach flow state, I can create. I mean, even if you want to take it to the simplest, well-being, the mindfulness movement has taken off hugely, and that works on the same principle, that you can reprogram your mind and, you know, put yourself into a much better state. So I think it's really time to kind of wake up to this and look to the people that have always been talking like this, and celebrate what they knew, rather than ridicule it and belittle it as a kind of old, naive ways.
When did you, as a person, tap into that? Have you always felt?
Yeah, so I had a very, very huge experience that kind of turned my life around. When I trained as an actor, I was in the rehearsal room, and I actually saw my nan, who died, had the spirit of her come into the room, and she said to me, "Don't be so afraid." And I've always been a little bit tapped in as a child, but that changed my world, because I had never experienced anything like that before. And from that day, I was like, okay, I've been sold a bit of a lie. I've been told that you die and that's it. And then suddenly, with my own eyes, I saw a spirit for the first time, and it was my nan. And, you know, there's no going back from that, because that's what I've witnessed.
Yeah.
And from that moment on, I kind of realised that I wasn't going to be on a normal path as an actor or a theatre maker, and that actually my world was different, and I'd been gifted something that kind of seeded why I started to write about like a spiritual trilogy of plays. Because unfortunately there's some people out there that think seeing visions or hearing voices is something wrong, that is mental illness. And sometimes it can be, if it's dark and it's scary. But for me, when I've seen so much light and beauty and wonder from having access to this different dimension, I think, well, why are we not talking about that more? And why are we not helping people see that, and open up to that? And that's kind of my life mission, to do that.
So that's kind of like, is it third tier thinking? Is that what they call it? Third tier thinking?
Third tier thinking? I haven't heard of that. What is
okay. Or maybe it's, you know, having a third eye. That's the other concept.
Third eye, yes. Yeah, it is. It's having your third eye wide open. Yeah.
Can you tell us more about the third eye?
Yeah, so the third eye is your I started off working just before I trained as a healer. I started to work with all my chakras in rehearsal rooms. So that might have been why it happened to me, because I was like, yeah, let's open them all up. And these are like energy centers you have throughout your body going up the spine, and your third eye is in the middle of your forehead. And it's meant to be related with clear vision and clear sight. And I often teach it around the witch persecution wound, because I believe that many healers and many women have this third eye shut, because your third eye is your natural intuition, like the intuition that will say to you, something's off, and I can't put my finger on why. Or before you go to pick up the phone, you already know who it is. Or you walk into a room and you just feel like the energy is not right. And I think so many of us do this, women and men, and that is your natural higher intuition, your third eye basically at work. But it's not often really understood, and you can actually work. I do a lot of kind of energy clearing meditations at the start of my work so that everything's open so that I can receive, because these energy centers get blocked. And like I say to people, like, you'd wash your hair and you clean your house, why wouldn't you clean your energy out?
It's very true.
It's a game
You,
changer.
you spoke about is it a script, a theatre show that you was putting on
Yes.
or working on?
Yes.
Such
Yeah.
as
Yeah. So so I'm basically I'm writing a trilogy of plays. So they're quite epic because they don't just they go into various lifetimes. My belief system is that you don't only live once. So I write about past lives and current karma. And that's part of my process as an artist. I kind of tap into the different lives that I've lived, and the wisdom that's hidden there and that I want to bring alive. And my belief is that the feminine has been buried in our history for a long time, and what she's really capable of, priestesses and witches and divine women that have great gifts. And so I started writing my first play, Awaken, because as I was training as a healer, I saw my past life when I was hung as a witch on a tree, and I thought, what, why have I seen that?
so,
Didn't really understand
you
it.
a little bit. How did you see that in the form of was that while you were dreaming?
No, it was so basically when you're training in Reiki, they do you like a guided experience. So where you're clearing out, I think it was maybe even clearing out or doing an eye to eye healing. So you're going into quite a visionary state. And then most people, I remember in my room, were like, oh, I can see lots of colours, and they can start to tap into auras. But one thing that you get taught later on in training is how to tap into past lives as an energy healer. But I hadn't been trained yet. So as we were going through and doing this kind of energy work, I had my eyes closed and I just saw the whole. When you vision something, it's like you can see it on screen in front of you, like flashing before you. Yeah. And how you know it's different from like an imagination is that you'll feel it, you'll experience it, and it all feels very heightened, and you'll feel the emotions of it. And there's a great, I don't know whether anyone knows it, but Brian Weiss, he was a psychologist that studied this, past lives. His books are amazing. Many Lives, Many Masters is where I started with it. And he talks about the thousands of patients that he worked with that had these past life experiences. And then that you go back and they can he found out all the facts and the concrete knowledge, because at first he was like, this isn't believable, I'm not buying this. But it happened to him for thousands and thousands of case studies, and it all came to be true. And since I've been working in that field even more, and I do past life regressions with my clients one-to-one as well, and the stuff that comes through is the same stuff as other people have channeled. And it's like, you know, that's, I mean, for me, that is reality. It's just, we haven't, it's another thing that people don't really know how to access. And it's quite powerful, because it means that the history that we've been taught in books, which we all know is skewed to certain people's history, isn't true, because you can suddenly access your lifetimes and go, hang on, this is not what I'm seeing or finding out. So I think it's a really powerful revolution for people to find out their soul's history through this.
Do you feel where you're at now is the latest version of your soul, or can you tap into a future self?
Yeah, so I've been tapping into a very old part of my soul, which is, I've been working a lot with the priestess mystery schools in ancient Egypt, which a lot of people talk about. And I've been working with that because my second play was partially in ancient Egypt. And what happens to me when I write is that, like, my writing's ahead of me. It's like I go through my own initiation writing my plays, and it teaches me about wisdom that I don't even know I have. So as I write them, I up level as a person and catch up with my own soul's wisdom, which I think is a really powerful process. But when I started, I had no clue I was doing that. I was a little bit like, I don't know what's happening to me. And I
quite
think,
like the idea of that.
sorry?
And I was just saying, I quite like the idea of that.
Yeah, yeah. But I found it quite scary at first because I didn't have anyone to talk to about that process. Like I was in spiritual groups and teaching and learning a lot of that, and everyone in spiritual communities talks about it. But then you go out into the theatre world and people don't. So I found that I was kind of fracturing who I was because in communities everyone got it, but then when I was outside, it was less people, and I think that's kind of another passion of why I'm trying to bring 5D theatre forward, so that people can have this space where they're working on a soul level in theatre, because that's how we used to work back in the ancient temples, and shamans would be channeling, and they do it in medicine circles now. And I think we've lost the sacredness of honouring the fact that we're more than just this body. And actually, we're a channel for work, and it's a sacred space. And that we should honour that we are these divine beings. And then, yeah, and that's the place we should work from. And I think we've lost a lot of sacred anything in society today.
Would you call this a form of spirituality, or is it something else?
Yeah, it is spirituality, but I find that sometimes that has like weird connotations, because spirituality could be anything, whereas I feel like it's just spirit is in you. You are spirit. You are more than, when you study it more, you realize, oh, okay, so I'm mostly made up of energy. Okay, and I've got this spark of light vibration that you can access once you've learned how to train to do it. And then you go, oh, okay, so I'm not just this body, because I can tap into it. So it is spirituality, but I think there's so many different beliefs banded around in spirituality that I find the labels are a bit limiting. Close things down somehow.
I could talk to you for ages, but I'm aware we've got 2 minutes left, and I really want people to see or hear examples of your work. So in this last 2 minutes, do you have anything at hand that we can hear?
Because the witches are speaking very loudly today, because of I have got a poem for my first play, so I'm happy to kind of sums up everything about where I'm at, and I wrote it just before I started my writing journey, so it feels like a good one.
Okay, when you're ready, please go ahead.
So it's called Speaking My Truth. You chastise me for being different in my power. I knew what was coming, and you said it was my curse. I brought healing to you and wisdom to your woes, but the unknown I revealed made you label me as crazy. We go back beyond this life. I was drowned for what I am. I was jeered at in the streets, hung up high and cast out. It was a time when it was so easy to say, yeah, she's one. Kill her off. Purge her for her sins. What sins? Leave her hanging for all to see, for the things you can't comprehend. You do it differently now. You just call me names. You label me as ugly, and you perceive me an old hag. You make a joke of me at Halloween, and you put warts on my skin. You make sure I have a crooked nose, and I cackle when I laugh. If you'd really understand, you'd see that I'm magical. I perceive things that don't make sense to your scientific logic. I still stand alone, but I call in my forces. I trust in plants, keep safe my rituals. I commune with the trees. And now I have freedom to do as I wish. But judgment persists. I'm still strangely outside. Acceptance only if I don't cast my spells too loudly or dance naked in your moonlight. Accept. I'm reclaiming what's mine. coming home to myself, being comfortable in my skin, and I'm standing in my power. I'm the modern day witch. What the hell can you do to me now?
Amazing, Cheryl.
Mm.
You know I love your work. So Cheryl is going to be hosting a gathering on the 28th of March, Shamanic Creativity.
Yeah.
See you at the salon.
All right. Thank you.